Welcome back to List Hounds. Today we're going to poison your nostalgia and probably make you infuriated at your own mother as we examine some childhood trash that could have become adult treasures. Today, we examine 5 toys from your childhood that you should have held on to instead of wasting your time in school. Who needs education anyway? What's the worst that can happen? Oh yeah. Here is our list of the 5 toys from your childhood that you should have held on to. Number 5. Transformers, Optimus Prime and Megatron action figures. Sold for $900. Long before Michael Bay got his explosion-charred and probably hairy-palmed hands on the Transformers, the franchise in the 1980s was one of the biggest in the world. Created in 1984, the Rock'em Sock'em robots, with mutable shape, went from a toy line to a children's cartoon that focused on a galactic power struggle between 2 fractions of alien transforming robots. The good guy Autobots led by Optimus Prime and the bad guy Decepticons led by Megatron. Since its inception, Transformers has spawned multiple animated television series, films, both animated and live action, books, comics, and some truly badass fan artwork. Also, disturbing fan artwork. After 1985, Optimus Prime was removed from shelves and made available as a mail-away toy in the Digital Doom on the Highway to Destruction offer in the US. It coincided with the Transformers movie that year. Little did we know, it would be Prime's last hurrah before the movie killed him off, in what amounted to the death of a number of our childhoods. He cost $21.50 and 5 robot points back then, complete with documentation and certificates. If you ordered that Prime, you could be looking at some Prime cash if it's still in prime condition. As far as his nemesis, Megatron, most of his figures were banned as he transformed into a very realistic-looking handheld firearm of accurate scale, based on an actual weapon that's still used in combat today. Ironically, it might cost more for Megatron than for the actual gun. Number 4. The Real Ghostbusters Fright Feature Action Figure. Sold for $950. Ghostbusters was first released 32 years ago, back in 1984, to positive reviews and huge commercial success. If you're on the internet, we're going to assume you're at least familiar with the film. Well, in 1986, an animated series was developed and a line of toys produced based on that series, which ran for 6 seasons and featured J. Michael Straczynski as head waiter for, wait, what? The Babylon 5 guy? I didn't know that! Anyway, the toy line based on the cartoon actually outlasted the show itself, with some truly bizarre and at times completely deranged action figures right out of a John Carpenter movie. The figure in question is the Fright feature figure Peter Venkman, based loosely off the Real Ghostbusters animated series Peter Venkman. There was also an Egon, Ray, Winston and Janine. The Fright feature toys can only be described as having Tex Avery syndrome. With the squeeze of their arms and or legs, each figure would bulge out various body parts. No, not those body parts. If you held on to this disturbing little gem, you might be able to pay the rent this month by trading your nightmares away. Number 3. Mint condition Cabbage Patch Baby. Sold for $995. Initially known as Little People, when the brand was first developed in 1978, Colico began mass-producing the dolls under the name Cabbage Patch Kids in 1982. The dolls quickly became one of the biggest fads of the 80s and served as popular gifts during the holidays. In 1983, demand was so high, mostly during the Christmas holiday, that people actually fought over them. They were the Tickle Me Elmo of their day, with thousands in demand as compared to only a few hundred typically in stock. There were multiple cases of people trampling, hitting, and using handheld weapons in order to ensure they got themselves a Cabbage Patch Kid. Thank God they didn't know how valuable those little plastic fetuses would eventually become, or we might have had some actual Mad Max-style warfare over them. One of those babies will go for just shy of $1,000, but luckily you don't have to fight in Thunderdome to get one. Oh God, really? After all this time, I had hoped we'd be beyond Thunderdome. Number 2. G.I. Joe Motorized Battle Tank. Sold for $6,500. There's no better symbol for pure American violence that's safe for kids than G.I. Joe. It's probably one of the most iconic and oldest toy lines in the world. Starting in 1964, the toy soldiers would go on to give birth to the term action figure. In 1982, the line relaunched with the popular background story of the G.I. Joe team fighting off the terrorist Cobra Command that has become synonymous with the franchise. Like many other popular toy lines, G.I. Joe has spawned a number of comic book adaptations, as well as 6 different animated series and a recent live-action movie franchise. The MOBAT, Motorized Battle Tank, because acronyms are hard, was first released in 1982, packaged with the action figure Steeler, because tanks are made out of steel, we guess. Assuming you have this motorized piece of nostalgia, you might just take a chunk out of your student loans by selling it for a whopping $6,500. Number 1. He-Man Eternia Playset. Sold for $17,000. Eternia was the land He-Man and his companions defended against the forces of the evil Skeletor in the dynamite cartoon and plastic homoerotic sci-fi fantasy franchise that dominated the 80s. The Eternia Playset, which was in production from 1986 to 1987, was Mattel's largest ever produced. The playset consisted of 3 levels of towers, which were accessible by different vehicles. Because of its short production span, the item itself had become somewhat of a rarity. But if by some miracle the little gem wasn't destroyed in an epic battle of good and evil, and it's still sitting in your attic, guess what? You could be able to sell your mythical land of science and magic for a down payment on your house. The land of Eternia is worth $17,000, and it's a much better real estate deal for a few square feet of plastic than you'll ever see anywhere else. That's our list of the 5 toys from your childhood that you should have held on to. Did you own any of these toys? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's list, drop us a like. And if you haven't gotten enough, don't forget to subscribe to List Hounds and check out our other videos.